Hi, welcome to Spanish 101, and today we're going to be talking about comparisons of inequality, focusing on adverbs. By the end of this video, you'll be able to make comparisons of inequality when talking about adverbs or describing how an action is being done. So first of all, let's recognize how comparisons of inequality work in English when we use adverbs. So here I have 3 examples that we're going to be using throughout this video, and that will be able to show you how this works and the patterns that we need to follow in order to create those sentences in English and also in Spanish. So the first 3 examples that I have is, the first one is John runs faster than Sam, Sam swims slower than John, and I listen to music louder than Paul. As you can see in these 3 examples, we notice a few patterns that are important to make these comparisons of inequality. The only difference is that in these we have adverbs instead of verbs, like the previous, instead of adjectives, like the previous video we made. So that's what we're going to be working on today. So let's look at one of the examples and break it down and see how this fits. So the first thing we notice here is we have our subject, in this case John. We have a verb, and that's going to be the biggest difference here. A verb, and then we have an adverb with the suffix er, and we have our conjunction than, and lastly our noun. So that's the formula we're going to use when comparing adverbs: subject, verb, adverb, conjunction, and a noun. So let's look at how it works in Spanish. So this pattern or formula kind of follows the same things, the same order and the same application. So here we have 3 examples in Spanish, and they're translated basically the same way. So they mean the same thing. John corre más rápido que Sam. Sam nada más lento que John. Yo escucho música más fuerte que Paul. So now let's break it into pieces how it works in Spanish. So here we have our subject. Again, we have our verb, in this case, corre. And notice how the verb is conjugated to the subject. Then we have our comparison of inequality, más, and it could also be menos, depending on what we're trying to compare. Then we have our adverb, our conjunction, and then the noun. So as you can see, they follow the same pattern. The only thing that changes is the suffix in English and the más or menos in Spanish. So that will be the only biggest difference, but they work the same way. Okay, so in the following video we're going to do a practice, and we're going to practice how to make comparisons of inequality using adverbs. But this video was an introduction, and for you to see how this works in English and Spanish. As you can see, it's not too complicated. You just need to be aware of what type of comparison you're making. Are you comparing a characteristic? If that's the case, then we're going to do comparisons of inequality using adjectives. But if you're comparing how something is done, if you're describing a verb, or an action, then we're going to follow this, or we're going to use this formula that we just reviewed on this video. So I hope this was a really quick introduction to how it works, and a breakdown of how it's constructed in Spanish. And then on the next video we're going to be doing a few practices for you to master this subject.